Welcome to the Closing Table with host Tamera, where we break down how to be successful in real estate and what it's really like to work in the real estate business. This is the Closing Table with Lawyer's Title.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Tamera. Today, we're going to talk about all the things that realtors need to know about their business this year. But first, if you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. So let's get a conversation going about your title needs. You can reach out to me on all of my social media platforms. My guest today, she's incredibly special because she's literally one of the top 3 most smartest people that I know about real estate. Okay. So if anyone can answer all of the questions about what's coming down the pipeline for realtors, it is this person. I am very honored to have Melissa Hailey on the podcast with me today. She's the broker owner of North Texas Top Team Realty, but that is not all. She is a broker for Bronze Star Property Management. She's the CEO and premier instructor for Agent Advantage Coaching and Training. She's a certified coach for Workman Success Systems, and she is on the broker lawyer committee at TREC. She literally doesn't sleep, okay? And she just got back from the big Texas convention. So I'm really excited to have her on the show and kind of unpack some of the things that she learned while she was there and just really provide some good education for you guys today. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining me. I can't believe I said all of that.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I mean, look, it's you, Leslie Rita Smith, and Christy Davis are literally the smartest people in real estate that I know and most educated about all things that realtors need to know about continuing to do their business in the right way. So very cool. You were in my mastermind meeting and literally like you just unfolded all this information and you're like, yeah, I can't come back. And I'm like, I need you to come and be a part of my mastermind just because you're so knowledgeable. So thank you.
We'll cover some stuff today. It'll be like being in the mastermind, but it's, saved and preserved forever for everyone.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So let's just go ahead and I'm one of those that like to jump right in. I want to talk about, so there's a ton of articles being produced by Inman and some, and NAR is rolling out a lot of stuff that they've been talking about as well. I get all the recon and the Texas A&M and all this stuff about a lot of talk about realtor membership right now. Yeah. And, there was an Inman article, I actually printed it. NAR signals more declines to come after third straight membership dip. And so basically Lawrence Yun is saying, who's one of the smartest people on the planet when it comes to real estate, that we should continue to expect it to decline now that we've come out of COVID, right? That seems normal to me.
Sure, yeah.
But when we start to talk about Dallas real estate, which we all know is different, and we start to talk about CCR memberships and MetroTex memberships, some of the data you were rolling out was that we ain't slowing down.
Yeah. North Texas is still a hot market for sure.
Well, and we definitely know that. But when you told me that CCR retained 90% of their membership, realtor membership.
Yeah, we had our highest renewal rate in 2022. The 2023, January 2023, highest renewal rate that CCAR had ever seen ever, I guess, as far back as they were tracking it. And then this year we were right up in the same number at like 90-ish% of our realtor members in Collin County renewed their membership January 1st of 2024. So paying their dues, staying an NAR member, a Texas realtor, staying a member of CCAR, and continuing to do their business.
Well, and I don't want to go here for too long, but, we've all heard about the NAR commission lawsuits, and some of those have hit our backyard now in the state of Texas, right? So do you think that there's going to be an effect from these commission lawsuits? And then also NAR's had a lot of internal issues, which we don't have to unpack all of that either. But do you think that we've seen some big brokers nationally part ways with NAR? Do you think realtors in Texas are going to have that same idea about leaving NAR? Do you think that this is going to have an impact on realtor membership within Texas?
Sure. So I think that the people that don't see any value, right? Maybe they're uninformed about what the value is, or they don't understand what the value is. And so they're thinking, well, why am I paying any dues to anybody because I'm not getting value, right? But I kind of think what you're maybe seeing a little bit at the national level, or when brokers are saying, well, we're pulling back. I think that was how you mentioned it, like pulling back. I think that the pulling back is not so much, hey, we don't want to be a member. We don't think you should be a member. I think that they're changing their policies to say it's not required that you be a member.
Okay.
Right. And then it's up to each individual office or because if it's a big corporate decision, right now it's up to the individual owner operators or the agents or the local brokers to make that determination. And I'm not sure that we're going to have as much fallout as some people are maybe expecting. Maybe it's even a little flashy on the headlines. Oh, big gossip, right?
Yes,
Right.
we know Inman's like the gossip.
Well, sure. Or
Magazine,
any, news media is going
Yeah.
to talk about, what's going to catch your attention. But I think that the realtors and the brokers that understand the value of what they're getting for their dues are going to stick around because it's not just the MLS. And that's the big complaint I hear is I don't want to be a member, but I have to because I can't get my MLS without it. Okay. I mean, MLS is a great resource, but what about your contract forms? Those come from your state association, or at least in Texas, they do. If you weren't a member of NAR and Texas Realtors, how are you going to have access to your contract documents and all of the things that we have? Because because I'm very involved with TREC, our contract documents that we work on is literally just between buyers and sellers. It's not between agents and their clients.
Right.
All of those contracts come from Texas Realtors. So your contracts are a really big deal. Your MLS is still a big deal. You also have other things like we have our RPR. That's a huge tool. And I think that, I could go on for a really long time about all the tools and all of the resources and all the benefits of being a member. I think when people don't really think about it and they don't realize it, then they just start saying, well, why am I even here?
Well, but that's a big difference between you and the average realtor, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you are very plugged into these things. So I think I had a few questions after what you just said. Number one, what are maybe the top 3 things that are valuable about being a member of NAR? Because I hear that all the time. We don't know what we get for our dues.
Right.
Okay. And then also, you mentioned several things that make sense about being a member of TAR also. And is there anything else are there value adds you want to add to what you just said? The promulgated forms or the TREC forms, right? Access to the contracts and all the forms that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else? What else?
Yeah.
MLS and what else?
I think that if I was going to put them in priority of the top, I don't know, top 3 or 4 maybe, because when you join your local, by proxy, you join the state and the national, right? So you're joining all 3 and you're getting that 3-way agreement, right, for all 3 organizations. But I think some of your top things are RPR is a huge benefit.
Explain RPR.
Okay. RPR is the Realtor Property Resource. That's what it stands for, Realtor Property Resource. You've got it on an app on your phone. You can also access it from our MLS here locally in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's attached on our single sign-on dashboard for the MLS. But Realtor Property Resource is kind of like, I don't want to call it a nationwide MLS, but it's about the closest thing we have because it partners with all these MLSs across the country to provide MLS data. Plus, it is a parcel-based program, so it pulls data on any address in the whole United States, and we know, is it in distress? Maybe it's not on the market, but have they had a foreclosure filing? Are they potentially going to be a short sale? Are they going through foreclosure? Is it in a bankruptcy? All of this information is in RPR. And it's such a quick, easy way to pull information for mining, for geofarming potentially, right? You need to figure out your geographic farm. Totally do that in there. It's a great tool for running comps. You can do that in there. I personally love when I use it when I'm out in the field because it knows where you are because it's attached to your GPS on your phone.
Okay.
And when I'm showing houses to a client and they say, well, why didn't we look at this house over here? I see a sign in the yard for that house. I just open up RPR and it shows me all of the houses nearby. I don't have to log in and run a search, which I could do from the MLS on my phone. But RPR is right there and it's already turned on and it already knows what I'm looking for.
Do you pay extra for RPR?
No, it's part of your NAR dues.
Okay, that is a really big golden nugget. Okay, because let me tell you something. Well, they just cut off access to Remine.
Oh, sure.
And so what is everybody doing? Call your title company for a farming list. And look, we can run farming lists. That is a thing, and I'm happy to do it for all of our clients. Absolutely. But some of this information, even some of the best farming apps can't pull up some of this data. So some of the things that you were talking about. And as a matter of fact, I just thought of an investor client who could really use RPR. So, I think I would love to kind of do a peek into RPR and see how it compares. But when you guys are looking for tools, I mean, look, it's Saturday night at 11 p.m. and I mean, you could ask me for a farming list, but I don't know if I'm going to get it to you at 11
on a weekend. Right. For sure.
So, I mean, this is something that you can do on your own if you need something, in an expedited way.
It's a great tool.
And I think I've heard really good things about RPR. I just don't know a lot about it. So I actually just wrote that down. I made a note and I'm going to circle back to RPR and understand it a little bit better so I can educate my clients. So thank you for that. That's cool.
So RPR, big benefit. Yeah. That was the thing you asked. I think our contract forms are huge.
Sure.
MLS obviously is huge. I think having access to the attorneys at the legal hotline, I think that's kind of a big deal. If you are concerned about something that's going on, you can call the Texas Realtors legal hotline and ask questions.
Any kind of real estate? Really?
Now they're not going to give you
Lizzie she went through a whole list of all the things that you need to know as a realtor, right?
Yeah.
Realtor. And I don't know. I'm sure legal hotline was on the list, but I like that one too.
Legal hotline's a big deal.
Okay.
And for me personally, I think you get a huge benefit by just plugging in, right? I mean, if you don't suit up and show up in your business, and I mean, you should be networking with people outside of real estate to build your business, but you need to network with people inside your business because that's where you learn about all this kind of stuff is when you talk to other real estate professionals and they have some kind of really great information for you about, hey, did you know we have this tool? Or here's how I'm doing it. I think just even networking at your local board of realtors is such a huge value add. Go take the classes. And by the way, if you're a CCAR member, now this is a plug just for Collin County, but at Collin County, your membership dues give you free education.
That's true. They don't charge for the CE classes.
They don't charge for the stuff that's mandated for you to renew your license. So your legal 1 and 2, those are required by TREC to renew your license. If you're a broker or somebody who manages or sponsors agents or leads a team, you got to have broker responsibility. You don't have to pay for that. You need 3 hours of contracts training. Don't have to pay for that. So all of these classes that are required, you can take for free as part of your membership dues. That's a huge win for people that are part of Collin County. Now, that's not necessarily the case everywhere else. That's a special thing. But all those others, everybody has. Everything else I mentioned, every realtor in Texas has access to.
Well, and I'm a member of CCR, so I get all the notices of everything that's coming up, and I inevitably will have Truck Legal 1 and 2, in March, because you teach it for us,
right?
And then we have it in October. But that as soon as we have it, someone calls me and says,
I need that legal update because I have to renew my license. I know. And
I always send them the link to the CCR. I'm like, are you a member of CCR? I didn't even think of all the way through that and realize that they don't charge for the required CE classes. So I wrote that down too. That's another little golden nugget for you guys, because your title company, as much as we want you to come to our classes, we have to charge for them.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, it's nothing. It's $5 an hour, but it's still,
well, and if you're not a member of CCAR, you're going to pay for it at your local board, or you're going to pay for it from another real estate provider like the CE Shop or Champions, or, wherever you take your education. You're going to pay for it. You have to have the class or you can't renew your license.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about education, let's move into some of the new education requirements for renewing your license, because I think that's really important for people to know. I mean, look, I think we've had the NAR Code of Ethics requirement for several years now. Yeah. So I would think that everybody knows about that one. But there's been a new one. Oh, you're shaking. Yeah. You're already tisk, Tamera.
No, not really.
Not really. Okay, never mind.
Let's backtrack. So the Code of Ethics training has been required for a really long time. I don't know how long, but a long time. Because in the early days, and you may remember because you've done some of the trainings before, we used to take legal and ethics. Do you remember that? You remember when we had legal
reaching back,
and then ethics? And then they changed it a few years ago, and then it was legal 1 and legal 2 because our ethics requirement, the information that we had in there didn't satisfy NAR's Code of Ethics requirement.
Okay.
So at some point while all that was going on, and NAR said, we have to have 2.5 hours of Code of Ethics training. Theirs is on a 3-year cycle. So that kind of really muckies up our stuff, right? Because in Texas, you renew your license every 2 years.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of weird. I was like, every 3 years. Okay, that's okay.
But NAR is on a 3-year cycle, which is fine, whatever. And please keep in mind, if you're not a realtor, if you just have a license with Trek, you don't need code of ethics training, right? This is for people who are realtor members, so they're a member of your local, state, and national board. So if that's you, you have to have code of ethics training every 3 years, and it's on a cycle. So we're about to end at the end of this year. We'll start another 3-year cycle.
Got it. Okay.
So if you haven't taken it in the last couple of years, you got to take it this year, or next January, you will not be able to renew your membership as a realtor member.
Okay, where do you find that out? I know where to find out if I've done my CE credit, like it's because it's on the Trek website, but
Sure.
I'm assuming you'd have to log into NAR.
You'd have to log into the
Okay.
NAR website, and it's going to be attached to your NERDS number, right? Your NRDS
Yeah.
number. And so you can totally look that up. But I can also tell you can take it for free in a lot of different ways, because NAR felt like, well, if we're going to require it, we want it to be available for everybody. So you can earn your C2EX designation that qualifies. So
They made that one easy to say fast.
Yeah, C2EX. So C2EX, in case anybody's wondering, that is commitment to excellence. So it's letter C, number 2,
Okay.
EX.
Got it.
Commitment to excellence. You log on to NAR, you just type in the little search menu thing, C2EX, and the modules come up, and you do the modules. You can do them on your phone. Once you complete that, you're good for 3 more years.
Okay.
That's one way you can do it. There's also some free online classes you can take, and you can also take it through your local board. So code of ethics every 3 years.
Okay.
Did you mention the other
We got
stuff?
fair, and we're next is fair housing. That's new.
Fair housing is new. So fair housing, we've had some issues. And, here's what I find interesting about fair housing.
Okay.
The first fair housing law was passed like 150 years ago, like a really, really long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do anything with it. We were terrible in our country about how we treated people with regards to fair housing for like 100 years. And then in the 60s, 1968, I think, we finally passed what currently makes our fair housing law, right? And so that was like 102 years after the first
Oh
time
my goodness.
we ever passed fair housing legislation. And that's really the basis of where we stand today. And then over in a little bit in the 70s and a little bit more in the 80s, we added a couple of more protected classes. That's what they call them, right? So you can't discriminate on things like race, color, religion, right? All of these things. Each of those is considered a protected class. So even though we've had all this training and even though we've made all this improvement, here we come into the, 2020s.
Yeah.
And we still stink at it. And it's not just in Texas. I mean, it's across the country. There was a big Newsday undercover investigation up in the Long Island area
What?
a few years back, and just total fair housing problems, because they would send in, a couple that was maybe, fit into a protected class and a couple that wasn't, and they would send them in and say, go ask for the same type of house, and they wouldn't be shown the same type of, they wouldn't be shown the same
Wow.
homes. And so
Okay.
anyway, in an effort to not have trouble and to be more proactive, NAR is like, hey, you got to have this training. So now that's also required. It's also going to be on a 3-year cycle, and it actually starts next year.
Okay. It starts next year. Okay.
So yeah, just know it's coming. Know you need to be doing your code of ethics training and now your fair housing training, and it's going to be on these 3-year cycles.
Okay. So tell me how many hours is the fair housing training and how many hours is the code of ethics?
So code of ethics is 2.5 hours
Okay.
for the class every 3 years. Fair housing is 2 hours every 3 years.
Okay.
Okay, so several hours every several years. Be a great thing.
Just
to keep
log
in
into
mind.
NAR.
Yeah, check your stuff. And so same thing though with the fair housing that's coming. There's going to be some free opportunities. There's definitely, you can take things like at home with diversity and bias override and things like that. There are some designation classes that will definitely satisfy it. But in Texas, here's what's great: our Legal 2 class will have 2 hours of fair housing training. It already does. I've been teaching it since January, and the new material has 2 hours of fair
Does
housing.
that so it qualifies?
That will qualify
Oh,
if
okay,
you take
good.
Legal 2.
Okay.
So in Texas, you're not going to have to think about
okay.
it, which is great.
Perfect.
But NAR also has kind of like their C2EX, where you can go online and log in and do this stuff. they have something called Fairhaven. I think it's fairhaven.realtor. And it's like a little simulator. You go through the process of what would you do if this situation came about, and you can work through that and answer the questions. And it's all regarding fair housing. And they're tweaking that right now so that next year when you take it, it'll be able to satisfy your 2 hours. Right.
Cool.
Yeah, it doesn't today, but it will in the future. They're working on it.
And then they've changed. Okay, let's SAE. Someone, I was talking about CE credit this morning. I was like, you know what? I forgot what SAE stands for.
Salesperson apprentice education. Your first 2 years in real estate, you're technically an apprentice. Who knew?
I forgot.
Because we kind of just don't act like that,
I've had my license for a minute.
I got you. Me too, girl. Me too. So SAE, first 2 years with your TREC license.
Yep.
You got to do SAE. But we love it if you also get some extra CE along the way. Don't just do the minimum. But the requirement to renew your license as a brand new agent is in your first 2 years. You need 90 hours of SAE plus legal 1 and 2. So 98 hours total.
98 hours.
98 hours. And please know, your SAE only comes in 3-hour blocks.
That's right.
You can't take 2 hours here and 3 hours there. And it
So
doesn't
you
add up.
have to prepare.
Gotta prepare. It's a lot of hours.
It is a lot of hours.
You have 2 years to do it.
Well, I know, but we're all procrastinators in this business.
Wait till the last minute. That never happens.
So, okay, my favorite thing, and this is what I did because I had already moved into home warranty at the time. I went and took my GRI because I got to sit in a classroom of 100 of my closest realtor friends at CCR, and all the instructors knew me. So they called on me. I was telling the story for this morning. They called on me for foundation repair and home warranty.
Right.
And so everybody knew who I was, and I wore my nation's badge, and I'm a licensed realtor, and I had to have SAE, so I took GRI instead.
I love that. And, you're suiting up and showing up and doing the networking.
That's
we
right.
said that was important.
So GRI stands for Graduate of Realtor Institute. Did I get
Correct.
that? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, because I hadn't thought about that in a minute either. So you can do your GRI in lieu of your SAE to satisfy your 90 hours of continuing education in your first 2 years. But they just made a change to one of the sections in the SAE. So
Right. All right. So GRI is qualified as an SAE class. So you can absolutely take that. And that is SAE, right? You can totally do that. I highly recommend it. And can I camp there for a second before I talk about the change?
You can do whatever you want, Melissa.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's why I think GRI is so great. Because I didn't take GRI in my first 2 years. I should have.
You teach a section of, at least one section of, you teach all of it.
I teach all the days.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I teach all the days.
I
Okay.
think you might have been in one of the classes that I took.
Maybe.
Marketing or something. No, Amber taught marketing back then, but I'm pretty sure
She's a great instructor.
I know.
Too. I love her. All right. So when I was in my first 2 years, and I didn't take it that way. I just went back and took mine at Champions again, right? And because that's where I did some of my pre-licensing. I just went there for after licensing and took them. And I took like a whole day on home inspections, which was great. And not a whole day, like a whole 30-hour class. Like a whole class was on home inspections. Fine. I took a whole class on marketing. Fine. I think my other one was finance. Awesome. They were great, but I got 3 topics out of it, and it was 90 hours. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
So here's what I love about GRI is every day is different. So one full day is buyers, working with buyers. You need that in your business.
You do.
A whole full day of working with sellers. You need that in your business, right? A whole full day of finance, because that's also important to understand where that's going. So as you can see, there's just a lot more, because you're taking 12 days of education to get your GRI, and means you get 12 topics. That's so much better for a well-rounded realtor than just taking 30 hours over here or 30 hours over there of one topic.
Yeah, they might have modified it a little bit since I took it because that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And it's business planning. It's all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Green homes. It's good. So here was your question. Your question, I'm going to make sure I'm circling back to it. You said, what's changed on your SAE requirements from TREC, right?
Yep.
All right. So now, starting this year, starting immediately today, if you're going to get ready to renew your license, 30 of your hours has to be brokerage.
Okay.
So great news is you get that when you take GRI. So if you take GRI, you don't got to think about it. You're just good.
Okay.
If you don't take GRI and you want to go somewhere else like Champions or something, and you want to take 30 hours of marketing and 30 hours of home inspector, you also have to take 30 hours of brokerage. And I think some people might be thinking, well, why do I need brokerage? I'm not a broker. I don't want to be a broker. I barely just got my license. I don't know what I'm doing. And the content here is for an agent to understand what the relationship they really have with their broker is all about. Is their broker supposed to be there to answer questions? How do they supervise them? What's expected? Because agents don't know that. And I think sometimes there's like that lack of, well, I didn't know my broker was supposed to do that for me. I didn't know my broker was supposed to help me with that. And so it's really to help agents understand their relationship with their brokerage.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Because look, if you're of the Ebbies of the world, you're getting all of that information. You can see the value of your brokerage.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, and this is just how it is, some of the smaller independent brokerages or maybe even some of the virtual brokerages, it's out of sight, out of mind. And there are legitimate requirements that you have to follow as a member of a brokerage when you're marketing and branding and advertising. Plus, I mean, I can't tell you how many questions we field all the time where we're like, that's a question for your broker. And if I hear who's my broker, we in trouble, sister.
Absolutely.
We in trouble.
And it's just like as a real estate practitioner, you have the ability to determine what is your business model, right? So some real estate agents are full service and full fees, and other real estate agents are flat fees and minimal services and everything in between.
And everything, all of it has a place.
Right. And it's the same thing for brokerages, right? So brokerages have different business models, and some brokerages are full service, and we're going to teach you and train you and help you and coach you and whatever along the way. And other brokerage models are a little bit more like, hey, minimum fee, but minimum help. Don't call me. I'm not here to help you. And that's actually not in line with the real estate commission's goals and objectives. Their goals and objectives are the brokers responsible for their agents. So that's what this class is all about, is to make sure that agents understand what is the role and responsibility that happens in this relationship I have with my broker.
I think that is super, super important. So I'm really glad that change is happening so that the new ones coming into the business can really understand that. Now, okay, I'm going to spend, because I feel like this is just such an important part of what you do, I am going to extend the podcast just a little bit today because I want a moment to talk about this. You are on the broker lawyer committee at TREC.
Yes.
Texas Real Estate Commission.
Yeah.
Just in case. Okay. I don't necessarily want to dive too much into the purpose because you guys are working on some things that are really, really relevant to my part of town.
Sure.
So one of the things you told me about that's in the works is a new form regarding mud notices. So we already have the PID addendum.
Right, we do.
Okay. And so now we're going to have a mud addendum.
It's looking that way. Yep. So in the last legislative session, the Texas legislature said, we got to get this notice out to people. And the key is that the mud districts are supposed to be providing the information.
They do not.
They do not. It's supposed to be on their website, I think, even as part of the rule, but it's not on some of them.
I do find Salina's really good. I'm not going to throw the other cities under the bus, but I have had to do some searches for PIDs and MUDs in Salina, and I am able to retrieve that information. But I just know that this particular community is in a MUD.
Yeah.
What is the MUD? And what do you get and not get because you are in a MUD? And so we have a community just south of us that in Salina that is in a MUD. And I have heard from numerous homeowners that they did not realize that they did not get to vote in city elections.
Yeah.
And they were not happy about finding that out.
Well, sure.
And so and I live up in the world where there's MUDs, PUDs, PIDs, SUDs, TERS. TERS, that was a new one. I was like, what's a TERS?
WCID.
No, I didn't know about that one.
Man.
So
water is a messy, messy, messy thing right now.
Water is so messy.
Yeah. We could do a whole podcast on water, I'm sure.
Yes, we could.
So
I'm glad that they're putting something together because the people in my we're in a PID. I'm in a PID. I knew I was in a PID, but I'm in real estate, right? So I can't tell you how many neighbors
Have no idea.
No idea. And they're like, they get their tax bill. And that is an interesting surprise because they've already gotten their slide on water bill, which is not cheap, by the way.
Right.
So it's just part of the cost of these new developments is that they have to come up with creative ways for
the financing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really what it's all about is if you've got 100 acres in the middle of nowhere and you want to come in and build a boatload of houses and there's no infrastructure, how are you going to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
And the developers are like, well, I'm not paying for it. And the city's like, I don't have a budget for it. You want to build some houses, figure it out. And so they're like, well, we'll just charge all the homeowners a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you have an ETA and when this, I'm assuming it's a disclosure notice like the PID addendum, correct?
Yeah. So here's what the goal from TREC is. And this is actually, can we call this one a golden nugget? This is important. This is important.
You get to have the golden nugget card too, Melissa.
All right. So here's the thing. We created the form for use during the times when the MUD notice is not available. So TREC's goal is if there's a MUD notice from the MUD and you can get it there, get it there. Do not use my form. That's what they want.
Okay.
TREC's like,
you know what's going to happen,
don't
right?
fill it out. Huh?
You know what's going to happen, right?
I'm hopeful
Just
that
saying.
the MUDs will continue to get their documents together and be available to provide that. But if they can't, if for some reason the seller or the agent has done their due diligence and there is no way to get this information off of their website, the MUD notice is not available, then we have provided a form that meets the criteria so that your seller can be in compliance with the law. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
And if that happens, then it needs to be the seller needs to get the form from us as realtors. They need to call their MUD on the phone and be like, hey, what goes in this blank in this? And just ask them the questions. And they need to fill it out because it is a seller's disclosure notice from the seller to the buyer. That's important because us realtors, we know we can't write on seller's disclosure notices. But the goal is not to fill this out every time. The goal is, hey, seller, go try to find this form. And if you can't find it, I'll give you a form with some fill in the blanks and you got to go get the information. Okay. That's what it's all about.
Is it going to have the same termination right as the PID addendum?
It already does. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Because that's governed by Texas water code. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Because I hear, as a resident of Salina, I hear all of the complications that come with buying a house in these areas that are having to come up with ways to finance all of the developments. Yeah. And, the buyers, they don't know. And look, I'm going to throw my builder sales reps, underneath the bus here because they act like they don't know and they should know. And so, look, there's no governing body for builders. And we know that it's kind of the wild, wild west. But, I just am really disappointed in as someone who luckily was informed. Mm-hmm. It's a big shock to a resident to have bought a house and be all excited about living where they are living and have this beautiful new home. And then you get these incredible bills or these, you can't do this or you can't do that stuff. And you had no idea. So I'm a fan.
I agree. It's all about disclosure to the person who's buying the property of what the real cost of ownership is.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And by the way, you may not know this, but you can be in a PID and a MUD at the same time.
That makes me sad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Yep.
Okay.
First time I ran across that was in Aubrey.
Okay.
And Sandbrook Ranch was the neighborhood. And
Sandbrook,
it was
okay.
In a PID and in a MUD at the same time.
Thank you so much for joining me today. What a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you for being a partner of mine as well. And so that's another episode. Again, I'm your host, Tamera Hailey. If you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. So give me an opportunity to have a conversation with you about your title needs and make it a great day.